Hi there guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. My name is Cadence and welcome along to my November bullet journal setup. So it's getting to the time of year when the nights are drawing in and I'm starting to feel all mystical, and I felt really compelled to do a moon themed setup again this month. The moon is a theme that I love to come back to every year at some point, sometimes more than once. And I do have quite a lot of different stationery that has a celestial theme, and I just really love using all of that stuff. I was short on time this month, so it was a bit of a rush, but I had the idea of doing waterfall tabs using the moon phases. So to start out with, I cut out some circles from some black paper. I used some pages that were left over in the back of a blackout bullet journal so that it still has the dot grid markings on it so that I can mark everything out. I use that throughout the setup, and it just makes things a little bit easier. I could have used just plain black card, but yeah, having those dots there just make setting up everything a little bit quicker. So because I was going to do the phases of the moon, I needed 4 circles cut out of the black paper, 1 for the full moon, and 1 I'm going to cut in half to use as 2 halves, and then 2 other ones to make crescents from. Now this did need a little bit of calculation, which I did beforehand, because it was quite a long process of measuring and counting dots and rubbing out circles and drawing them in again, which would have made for quite a boring video. But yeah, it took a few attempts at getting all the circles in the right places to make the waterfall tabs work. So once I had all my moons cut out, then I could stick them down and start cutting out each page. So I've got the crescent moon right at the top on the first page, which is going to be the cover page, and quite a large chunk of that area does get cut off in order to have space for all the rest of the moon phases. To make it easier to set up all the rest of the pages, I did all the waterfall tabs together at the beginning rather than doing them each page as I went along. And although I did mark out all of the moon phases and the tabs to start with, I didn't actually design any of the rest of the pages beforehand, just so that I could more easily see how much space I had left to play with after each page was trimmed down. So each page of the waterfall is created by cutting around the circle where the moon shape is, and then cutting a straight line down sort of just under halfway along the moon and removing the rest of that page. So then the circular part that's left just makes up the tab that you can easily grab hold of to flip each page over. After I had stuck all of my moons down and cut all the pages out, I then went and added a little bit of decoration to each of the moons. So using a white gel pen, I just doodled in a few of my favourite things to do, which are flowers and leaves, and I really love how they turned out. I wanted there to be some detail in each of the moons, but I didn't want to make the whole area look too busy. Initially, I did toy with the idea of putting some washi tape or some decorative paper along each edge, and I did do a bit of a mock-up one really quickly beforehand just to see how that would look, but I felt that it ended up being really busy and a bit sort of visually distracting, I suppose, and then you couldn't really pick out the moon phases from the washi and the paper. So in the final version I decided to leave that out. And you can't really tell that they are tabs when the page is flat and all the moons are just next to each other, which I think is actually quite cool. And it just only becomes apparent when you flip each page over and then you realise that they are tabs. As I wanted the tabs to sort of form part of the decoration of the front cover, I decided to do my title vertically rather than horizontally. Pretty much always I go horizontal. But in order to work with the tabs, I kind of had to do it that way to fit it in. And I used a fairly decent sized brush nib to write the word November in slightly bouncy hand lettering. And then in opposite corners, I added some decorative elements. I've kept the theme pretty much just sort of black, white, and purpley bluish tones with a little bit of gilding here and there. Once everything was stuck down, I then added a few more leaf motifs with a fine nib pen, and also a few sparkles and stars here and there around the edges. Although it was fairly complex to create with all the tabs, the overall look of it is fairly simplistic, I think, and I really like how it turned out. I'm not sure it completely matches the vision I had in my head when I was thinking waterfall tabs, but I do still really like it. The next page I did was my calendar page, and unfortunately I somehow ended up not filming that page. I think I must just have not hit record on the camera or something, but I unfortunately don't have any footage of putting that one together, so I will just show you the finished page. And I don't think I've ever actually done this before, but I decided to use the page to the left of the cover. I think I pretty much always do my cover page on the right hand page and then my calendar somewhere further inside, but because of the tabs and the trimmed down pages, I didn't have as much space available, so I just thought, why not put it on the other side? I've seen plenty of other people doing it that way, but for some reason I've just never chosen to do it that way myself, so yeah, I just put it on the other side. Again, I cut another page out of the blackout journal and just drew my grid for the month. For the dates, I just drew a little white circle at the top, sort of representing the moon in the middle of each box. And then on top of that, I could use a black pen just to write in the numbers. And then in opposing corners, I used some more washi tape, some gilded papers, and some purple floral stickers as well. So after that one, the next two pages were quite narrow because of the tabs, so I had to do something that was more list-like, which is absolutely fine. So the first one I did was my to-do list, and it was pretty simple. I just cut out a big rectangle of the blackout journal paper, gave it a border and a heading, and used the whole length of the page so that I can have a nice long list for all of my items that I need to get done, especially with Christmas coming up in December. I need lots of space to write down all of my things that I need to get and think about for that month, so definitely needed in November. The page adjoining that, I made my gratitude log, and it's exactly the same size. I just added numbers 1 to 30 along the left hand side, so that I can write something along each line for every day of the month. On the backs of the tabs, I have just done the same thing and added in another moon, continuing with the phases in the same direction as they were on the front. The thing with doing waterfall tabs, where each one is slightly different size, I always forget that things like that tend not to look as good going the other direction as they do going forwards. So when the next page gets flipped over, you kind of see like half a cut off moon and half the calendar, and it's not terrible, but I just kind of always forget that it's not as good one way as it is the other. After those two list areas were stuck down, I then added the decoration. I wasn't entirely sure how much space I was going to have once those parts were in, so I left that to the end so then I could see where I wanted to put it across both the pages and make sure that they were cohesive. I also had to make sure that I was avoiding putting any bits and pieces along the right side of the page so that it then didn't show through to the front and kind of alter the look of the cascading moons on the front cover. After those two were done, the next page over is for my plant watering tracker. And this one again is just a big black paper rectangle cut out. I did the tracker as a vertical table this time. I'll quite often do a horizontal one spanning across both pages, but for some reason I decided that I didn't want to do that this time. I don't really know why. But I kept the plant watering to one page and the habits to another page. Quite often I'll do them all as like one trackers and habits page in 2 separate tables. But yeah, this time I did the vertical table with all my plants listed along the top, the numbers down the left side, and then I will just check off each date that I water each plant. Doing it the vertical way does end up making it a little bit squished sometimes, which is why I often do it horizontal. But sometimes I forget that and I go and I start designing it and I'm like, oh, this is really squashed. This is why I do it the horizontal way rather than the vertical way, but never mind, it's fine. Over on the next page, I have got my habits, and because I did the table for the plant watering, I decided not to do another table because I didn't want this page to look exactly the same, because I felt like the previous page, both setups were the same. So just to mix it up a bit, I decided to do separate calendars, and I cut each one out of the black paper and did a little miniature calendar on each one with the white gel pens. I'm only tracking 5 habits at the moment. Earlier on this year, I was tracking quite a few different ones. I can't remember exactly how many, but it was a lot more than this. But since I bought my house earlier this year, I have just not had time to keep up with as many habits as I would like to, because it's needed some renovation and redecorating. So pretty much all of my time is kept up with that. And that's also why I was in such a rush to do my journal this month as well, because I just felt like I've not had much time for journaling and designing journals as I normally would. But yeah, so it's a bit of a fight to keep doing my journal at the moment, but I do still enjoy it, so I'm trying my best to make time for it. After my calendars were all done, I just added a few more bits of the washi and stickers, and then did some more sparkles here and there around the place to keep the theme going. And then finally onto the weekly spreads. I kept it pretty simple again with this one because, yeah, doing the tabs and the moons and everything did take up a little bit of time. So I just did a 6-box grid, one for every weekday, and then put the weekend into the box on the end. The last couple of months I've been experimenting with time blocking on my weekly spreads. And I have found it really helpful sometimes, but not so much other times. And I think because I was just trying to get this one done quickly, and I do need a space for each day just to jot down certain bits and pieces, I just decided to go with the standard boxes rather than doing any time blocking this month. I can't see myself doing it again next month because, again, like I say, things are gonna carry on being quite busy in the run up to Christmas and everything, but I may well decide to try that again in the new year. Normally I would reserve a page for memories, just as sort of like a little journaling area to jot down things that happen, things that I think I might want to remember in the future, but I didn't really have space for it. So I just dropped it this month, which is absolutely fine, and I'll probably see if I can get one back in for next month. And if I feel like I want to jot anything down, I can easily fit that in to the boxes on each of the days. So that is all good. And there we have it. My November setup is done. I'm loving the purpley, slightly witchy vibe this month. Love the moon as always. So I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I think my favourite thing about it is the little illustrations I did on the moon phases. I think they look so cute. I'm happy with how the whole thing turned out, and I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and maybe it gave you a little bit of inspiration for your own journals. If you feel like it, you can leave a comment or a like, and consider subscribing to my channel if you want to see more arts and crafts and bullet journals. Thanks so much again, bye!